everybody? Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, along with Will Ragatz of SI on Vikings. Will, you're looking like you spent some time in the sun over the last few days watching Minnesota Vikings practice. Actually, we do have a little more shade than usual, but you and I, there's not a whole lot we can do. But you know what that means, Will? We have gathered a heck lot of information about the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm just going to start here with a broad question, and then I want to get into a game with you. How you feeling about the 2025 Minnesota Vikings after 7 practices?
I'm feeling good. I don't know that my expectations have shifted all that much from where I was when we came in before this last week of practices, but I mean, if anything, my expectation level and excitement around this defense has only grown, and it was already pretty high just based on knowing the roster on paper and knowing how good they were last year and year 3 and under Brian Flores. But they look really, really good. And then the logical question from that is, okay, if they're looking this good against the Vikings first team offense, and there's a lot of going against the second team offense as well, and then how they mix and match those units. But how do we feel about the first team offense? And I'm not worried about it yet. I think that this is just a really, really good defense. It's a young quarterback who's had some ups and downs. The offensive line is still getting kind of back to full strength. Justin Jefferson's been out for the last few days. So I think that there's still plenty of reason to be optimistic about this offense. I think the run game would be a big one. Jordan Mason has looked kind of bad as advertised. But this defense, I just think is going to be, for as great as they were last year. I mean, they DVOA, EPA per play from opponents, takeaways, scoring, all the stats, like they were top 5 or higher last year. I think that they could be even better this year, which is an exciting kind of idea as we head into this season.
It's kind of a funny evaluation to make because when the defense is crushing, nobody really wants to hear that. They want to hear that JJ McCarthy is the best quarterback that they've ever seen in training camp. And yet, if that was happening, then we would be going, well, this secondary is really in trouble because they're completing so many passes and so forth. And it just has really stayed true to the adage of the defense being ahead of the offense. But it particularly is because outside of Hargrave and Allen, all these dudes know the defense, and maybe Jeff Okudah, but Isaiah Rodgers. Aside from that, though, everybody else knows this defense. So when they're putting things in, like, these guys are getting it instantly and they're taking advantage. And then the offensive line not being to full strength, I think, has also played a role here in the absolute dominance of the defense so far. But I think we all understood that if this team is going to be as great as their expectations are, they're going to have a great defense. And we also know that the offense will be better with Justin Jefferson than when he's not practicing, and it's Lucky Jackson, who we all appreciate his story, but he's not Justin Jefferson. I don't think Lucky Jackson thinks he's Justin Jefferson. So I've been on the side of being patient, but I think that leads us perfectly into the game. The game is tell me I'm wrong for thinking blank. And I want to do a bunch of Vikings training camp opinions here, but then maybe a couple around the league as well. Let's just start out with JJ McCarthy here. Tell me that I'm wrong, or if I'm wrong, for thinking that what JJ McCarthy has done so far is about exactly what I expected, and it's just fine, even if there have been reports from people like ourselves that the last couple of practices have not been very good, and there has been a lot of pressure and some inaccuracy and all those things. But it is my opinion that this usually happens when the pads first come on and the defense is dominant. What will happen with JJ? I know this is a long tell me I'm wrong but this is my take. If next week it still looks this way, then I will start to raise a little bit of alarm. But I am perfectly chill about how JJ McCarthy has played in training camp so far. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I will disagree with you on some of these, I'm sure. This one, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because I have the same take. I think that this is kind of what we expected with JJ McCarthy, especially with the context now of not having Justin Jefferson. I think there would be a lot more completions and just kind of offensive success if you have the best wide receiver on the planet out there practicing with you. And yeah, like you said, Lucky Jackson is a cool story, but he's been getting a lot of run with the ones. And maybe that's a different topic if that should be a concern at all. But No, with McCarthy, I think that there are reasons for not concern, but reasons that patience is needed. And I think that that will remain the case for the rest of training camp and into the start of the regular season, and maybe for the entire regular season. Just some of the things with going through the progressions and being decisive with the ball, and trusting what he's seeing at a high level in this offense that he has been studying dating back to last year, but is just had missed a lot of reps last season and is really kind of getting up to that mastery of. It's a complex offense, and it's also hard to trust what you're seeing when Brian Flores is doing a million different things that are clouding the pre-snap and post-snap picture for you, which is good. That's good reps. That's good work. There's going to be some stuff, I think, with the topic that we've been talking about a lot, which is layering throws and throwing with touch. And he's still clearly developing that in his bag. There's moments when he steps up and he just rifles it into a tight window. And that's really, really impressive. But there's still going to be some stuff with the touch and with layering. With all of that said, I don't think that this is anything concerning relative to what we thought he would look like coming in. There's been ups, there's been downs. I mean, before the last couple of days, it had been a lot more ups than downs in my view. Like Saturday's practice, the first one with fans, was really impressive. The way that he commanded things in the red zone period, the way that he, threw that deep ball to Jordan Addison and made a bunch of other throws, made some throws with touch and anticipation. So you've seen all of the flashes and all of the ceiling that you want to see, but there has been, as expected, some of the kind of just growth curve. And I think we'll continue to see that. I'm not concerned about it. Like you said, though, you hope to see, which we did from JJ McCarthy just last training camp, just some kind of improvement that you can see happening over the course of day by day, week by week.
So I'm workshopping a second part of this idea. I'm just going to try to work my way through it and see if I can get where I'm trying to go. I don't think that JJ McCarthy is going to be a wildly accurate quarterback, probably ever. I think that there have been quarterbacks who have come out of college like CJ Stroud or Baker Mayfield who just throw the ball so well. And it's a tight spiral and they just have great touch. And even they have some of their adjustment periods to the NFL, even though those were two guys who came in pretty quickly. But we've seen quarterbacks have success without being flawlessly accurate if you know where the football is supposed to go. So here's the opinion that I'm working on is in Jared Goff's second year with the Los Angeles Rams. If you look back at his PFF grades, they're not that great. They're not that special. But if you look at the success of the offense, and they had Todd Gurley, and they had a great offensive line, and they had a great defense, and 2017, 2018, that team goes to the Super Bowl. 2017, they're in the playoffs with a really good offense. I think that there's a comparison there with him. Now, I know McCarthy is more of a scrambler, but I don't think that he's going to run for 500 or 600 yards. But I think that there's a similar job there of where Jared Goff was not the most flawless passer, throws the ball really hard, makes a lot of good decisions, understands the offense, and had a coach and weapons that really, really worked for him. That's kind of my early comparison. And I still think Jared Goff like dirts some balls, airmails some balls, throws behind guys. It's not perfect, but his decision-making is really good. And over the next few weeks, I think that's the biggest area where McCarthy can show us, because I don't think he's ever going to stop trying to layer a ball and throws it into the stands. I think that's just who he is and who he's always going to be. And even I think it was last year, he said he was going to try to get some golf in or something like that. And I was like, oh, what kind of golfer are you? And as you can see, I just finished up playing myself on our off day. But so I was interested, and it was the most JJ McCarthy answer. Well, I drive the ball super far, but I can't really chip or putt. And I was like, that's kind of, you play quarterback a little bit right now. How do you feel? Like, tell me I'm wrong about that opinion that early Jared Goff could kind of be a comparison here for him.
No, I like that opinion. I don't know that I necessarily agree that he doesn't have the potential to be a very accurate quarterback. I think there's a lot of stuff on his college tape from an accuracy standpoint that's really impressive. I don't know that he's going to be, like you said, like a CJ Stroud or somebody like that. I think that you can be like a hybrid Jared Goff where he's not as big as Jared Goff. I don't think he's not like as big as a Sam Darnold, but he does have a really strong arm. I think the idealized version of JJ McCarthy is about arm strength. It's about really good decision making. It's about being able to throw on the run and be athletic. And like, yeah, he's not going to run for 800 yards or be Justin Fields or anything like that, but be able to scramble when you need to. We saw him do that on a third down in our only sample of him playing quarterback in an NFL game against the Raiders in the preseason opener last year. But yeah, get out of the pocket, run, throw on the run, throw with some touch. That's going to have to develop, but I think that we've seen that he is capable of doing it. The consistency is always going to be a question because, like, there's been a couple throws in training camp, like you said, where he tries to layer it and it's just well over the guy's head or just inaccurate for whatever reason. But I think that accuracy can be a strong suit of his with more development. And I mean, with JJ McCarthy, we kind of don't know exactly what he's going to be. There's just still a small sample size, even of his entire college career, and even of one preseason game last year and all the training camp reps we've seen. Like, there's still so many more reps for him to take to grow and to become the quarterback that he's going to be, hopefully, for a long time. The Vikings think so. I like some of the Jared Goff comp, but I also think that there's some real accuracy ceiling with JJ McCarthy with some of the flashes that we've seen of him being able to pinpoint the ball pretty accurately. So
I definitely agree that he can improve this because he has very few actual NFL passes, actually zero, but very few passes even since he got to college. And so there's a lot of growth that he can make. Josh Allen is probably the best example. Lamar Jackson, these guys got much, much better in terms of accuracy. Those guys are also better athletes. They're probably two of the all-time great athletes to ever play quarterback. I don't think that I'm putting JJ McCarthy in that category. I think my point is that, like, think about an NBA comparison to this, where let's say that I am an average 3-point shooter. That's 35% in a normal circumstance. But I play for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and every time that I get a three, it's open in the corner because they're double teaming Anthony Edwards. I'm not shooting 35%. I'm shooting 42%. And I think the same thing can go for JJ McCarthy. There are plenty of quarterbacks who have won a lot of games. I think of Alex Smith as not being dead-eye accurate. I mean, I think of Eli Manning as not being dead-eye accurate. And they're able to win because they have arm strength and because they are willing to push the ball down the field and they understand their systems. They have great supporting casts. Even Brock Purdy, like, sprays the ball sometimes. And right. I mean, I think McCarthy throws it harder, but Purdy is not flawlessly accurate. I don't think he has to be perfect to win. And he has to also understand that, like, there could be, I almost feel like I've heard too much about layering the ball, and to the point where I'm like, okay, look, if you overthrow a guy going to the sideline and it goes into the stands, like, next play, just don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. If you only complete 62% of your passes early in your career, it's fine. Like, move on, just keep gunning. I think that would be the big thing. And one other thing about McCarthy is I really think that over these next 4 to 5 practices, we're going to learn a lot about resilience from JJ McCarthy because he fought back from the injury. He fought back from bad practices last year. He fought back from an interception on his first drive, but 3 rough practices in a row in the NFL with this defense that does not stop. I think that progress for him is going to tell us how he does as far as that resilience and ability to bounce back is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were talking about this, that, like, this defense being so good is a great test for JJ McCarthy because I genuinely think he's going to get to regular season Sundays and feel some degree of relief. Not against, there's some really good defenses out there that he's not going to know from practicing against them, but just the complexity of this Flores scheme and all of the things that it throws at you and the things that are hard to predict and just make you process so much. Like, that's really valuable work for him. It also runs the slight risk of, if the first team defense is just going to dominate the first team offense in the way we've seen over the past few days, like, are you gonna lose confidence if you're JJ McCarthy with just, wow, I'm at the top of my drop and there are already 2 guys back here and I'm sacked, or I'm stepping up and there's just nothing downfield. And I don't think that will be the case. I think that one of JJ McCarthy's strengths, maybe even a superpower of his that will theoretically help him become the quarterback the Vikings want him to be, is the mental side of it. I think he's got the character. I think he's got the makeup. I think he's got the intangibles that he is not going to be flustered by some rough practices or an interception in a game or even an entire bad game or bad half or whatever. I think he's going to be able to shake that off, continue to trust the work that's gotten him here. I mean, his college story is a pretty good example of that, with just the way he rose to meet the big moments at Michigan. So it's not something I'm worried about. I think you could theoretically talk about that being a concern with some quarterbacks, with just the lack of success that we've seen in the best on best periods over the last few days. But I think it'll be good for McCarthy. I think he's going to come out of this experience sharper for having had this experience going against a defense that I think is going to be really, really good this year.
Okay. What opinion would you like me to decide whether I'm talking you out of it or not? I forget what the game is now. Oh, am I wrong for thinking? Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. Okay, tell me I'm wrong. So what do you got?
Well, let's just stay on that same kind of front that I've been talking about a little. Tell me I'm wrong for thinking that the Vikings are going to have a, dare I say, historically good defense this year. Or I could phrase it this way: the best defense in the National Football League in 2025. They were second in DVOA last year, second in opponent expected points added per play, fifth in scoring, tied for first in takeaways. And that was with Jerry Tillery and Jihad Ward as their top two interior pass rushers. Now you've got Javon Hargrave and John Allen, who are a little older, maybe some health concerns there. But if they're healthy, they have looked really, really good in camp. I mean, we've seen Javon Hargrave giving somebody like Ryan Kelly, who's a very good pass blocking center, a tough time. And then Jonathan Grenard just looks like he is on an absolute mission this year. He had an unbelievable season. He probably should have been an All-Pro last year. He had 80 pressures, 12 sacks, a bunch of tackles for loss. And he's looked better this year. I mean, he has been unblockable. Granted, poor Justin Skol is getting a lot of that assignment with Christian Darrisaw out, but then you talk about the linebackers and the safeties, and I can go on and on. But tell me I'm wrong or not for thinking that the Vikings might just have the best defense in football this year, and maybe one of the best in the last decade.
All right, so I have 3 letters and 1 word to tell you why you might be wrong there. AFC South. Last year, when they set this baseline of being a top 5 defense, they played the AFC South, and Mac Jones started for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Will Levis, I don't know if he ever starts in the league ever again. Joe Flacco, and then it's always possible Anthony Richardson could have had a big game, but there was no chance that Joe Flacco was having a big game against this team. And then they crushed Houston's offense. They fired their offensive coordinator. That helped a lot. They also faced an injured Jordan Love. I think that the competition was still decent as a schedule last year for quarterbacks, but it was not great. And this year, when you look at the schedule and who they're playing for offenses and quarterbacks, they are playing. And this is something that I'm really taking note of early in camp, because I think the offensive line has distinctly won a lot of the run reps so far since the pads have come on. Now, this could be that Allen and Hargrave, all right, this is my gap, but I ain't doing this today. I'll do this when we get to play the Chicago Bears, but I ain't doing it today. And Will Fries is looking real good, I think, early in camp, but they've gotten some push. And if the Baltimore Ravens get some push, if the Philadelphia Eagles get some push, if Jaden Daniels is an MVP candidate, if Lamar Jackson is an MVP candidate, if Aaron Rodgers turns back the clock even just a little bit and is pretty good for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is a much harder schedule than it was last year. And look, Dak Prescott is only 2 years removed from the best offense in the entire NFL. And we're looking at, Dallas as, well, of course they should just win that game in Dallas. There's a lot of great quarterbacks. There's a lot of great teams. That's why I think they had to do this. If they had franchise tagged Sam Darnold and they couldn't sign these guys, then this defense probably is not fit to play against these teams. And look, I think the cornerbacks have been fine so far. When have they really been tested in this training camp because there's been so much pressure on the quarterback. They really haven't been tested. It could still be when you start to look at the receivers that they're going to go against. It's Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. It's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Drake London is a heck of a wide receiver. You got DK Metcalf that comes up there. I mean, it happens pretty fast, right? So I think, and that's not even to mention like how good the Detroit Lions should still be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talent on this schedule, and that would probably push me away from any sort of historically good defense. I think if you're top 5 this year, that's much better than top 5 last year. So I'm going to say let's cool our jets a little bit. They are facing a first-time starting quarterback as of right now, 2 days through this team in Pats.
Okay, that was good. I think I needed that. I think I needed to come back down to earth a little bit. I'm just watching Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and these defensive tackles and the linebacker. I'm just getting a little carried away, perhaps. The schedule is a good kind of rebuttal to that. I probably haven't been thinking enough about how good the schedule is, especially kind of, I think like mid-season they hit a stretch that's quite tough. Yeah, it's after the bye when it's like Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens. And then after the Bears, you got the Packers. Like that, yeah, it's a tough schedule for sure. I would say, I mean, and historically great defenses are measured by like yards allowed or points allowed or basic stats that everybody knows. It'll be interesting to see DVOA, which us nerds like, because that does account for some of the schedule stuff. Like they weren't second in DVOA last year because they played Mac Jones and Will Levis and one. I at least I think that incorporates that into that in that metric. So they could be like 10th or 8th or something in a raw points or yards stat and higher in DVOA because they're playing the Ravens and the Commanders and Eagles and all these really good teams. But yeah, there's going to be some fun matchups, I think. I mean, every week you talk about the offense and the defense going against the opposing team's offense and defense. I just think when other teams on the schedule have the ball, we are going to see some fireworks sometimes with Brian Flores going against some of the offenses and some of the quarterbacks on the schedule. So I'm looking forward to that. And obviously I'm looking forward to watching JJ McCarthy as well, but that'll be a little bit even more of like two heavyweights fighting in some of these games.
I think that there's enough areas where they could get beat. And I don't mean beat like bludgeoned beat. I just mean, all right, if they're in the nickel and Jeff Okuda's playing there and he gets matched up against Jamar Chase and, you know, they try to hunt that particular matchup or something like that. Or, I mean, look, Joe Burrow, I mean, it doesn't matter how good your defense is. Joe Burrow could just throw for 500 yards on you someday. And, you know, that's just who he is because he's an MVP candidate. And the same thing goes for Lamar. I mean, I think it's easy to forget since Josh Allen was the MVP. Lamar threw 41 touchdowns last year, or something like that. It's just absolutely absurd passing that we've seen from, how many was it actually? Oh, 45. No, that was it 41? I'm checking.
Lamar last year?
Yeah, 41.
And 4 interceptions.
I mean, that's the point here, right? Like you are facing some of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I also think you're facing the 2 best running games in the league. Mm-hmm. And this team could have a little bit of a weakness against the run. That is my guess for the opposing team's strategy, is that they're going to try to stay on the field. They did this to the Vikings last year. They try to stay on the field, try to have long drives, wear down Allen, wear down Hargrave, wear down Phillips, make them get, you know, Levi Drake Rodriguez and Jalen Redmond in the game. Some of these guys, you know, even Harrison Smith, make him be out on the field for 10 plays. I don't think that it's undefeatable like maybe some defenses in the past. When I think of 17, which is the best defense we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Zero weakness. Just there's no answer to that. I think there's some to this. It's just that JJ McCarthy has not found that yet so far in training camp. Okay, I'm going to tie this in to the FanDuel question of the day here. The show will now presented by FanDuel, which is a very cool relationship for us.
Big time.
On FanDuel right now, the Green Bay Packers have ever so slightly higher odds to win the NFC North than the Minnesota Vikings. Tell me I'm wrong to say that I think the Vikings should have higher odds to win the NFC North than the Green Bay Packers, even though FanDuel is smarter than me when it comes to projecting. But I'm going to say on this one, I'm not agreeing. I'm going to say that the Vikings have higher odds. Well, what say you?
By higher odds, you're saying that the Vikings should be favored more to
Yes,
win.
yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes.
That's all.
Higher,
That
I
always
should I should
gets
mean better or
lower. Yeah.
lower.
Better.
Sorry, everyone at FanDuel for the phrasing. That the
Yes.
that the put it this way. Right now on FanDuel, the Packers have a better chance to win the division than the Vikings by a slight edge, and I think it should be the other way around.
I agree. I just saw recently some power rankings, I think, that had the Packers 5th in the league. And I saw somebody's rankings of NFC quarterbacks, and they had Jordan Love number 1. And I'm kind of wondering, like, where is this coming from? The Packers, I think, are going to be a perfectly fine wild card hunt type of football team this year. They were the 7th seed last year. They have not made drastic changes in the offseason. You've got like a new offensive lineman. Aaron Banks is the guy from San Francisco, and we got a new guard, and we've got I think they paid a cornerback some money from the Raiders, and they drafted Matthew Golden, and like there's some minor differences, but I don't see how they should be considered this great team that's a legitimate NFC contender, or even ahead of the Vikings. And granted, I mean, this comes back to every conversation with the Vikings, which is how much do we believe in JJ McCarthy? And my answer is I believe in JJ McCarthy's ability to be like the 15th or 16th best quarterback in the league this year, with Kevin O'Connell leading the way for him. And if he is that, then I think the Vikings are better than the Green Bay Packers, even if Jordan Love is clearly better than the 15th or 16th best quarterback. I just think that the gap in environment, surroundings, supporting cast, coaching staff to some degree is really, really big. I don't think it's very close. You lose Jair Alexander, who is one of your blue chip kind of players. And they've got some good guys like Edgerrin Cooper. I think is going to be really, really good at linebacker, but the Vikings have a lot of blue chip guys, health pending, as many as maybe it's like top 5 in the league. I mean, maybe not like the Eagles or Ravens, but they're close with how good this roster is. So yes, I think the Vikings should be. I think they should be the second favorite behind the Lions, who you still have to give that respect to, even without the coordinators in the NFC North. But FanDuel and Vegas are usually pretty smart. So
I'm going to pull out a deep Minnesota reference here. And I just hope people are impressed because I've not lived here forever, but I did watch the Minnesota Twins a lot. I think that Jordan Love is Brian Dozier. I think he has sometimes a crazy hot run where you're like, oh my gosh, every time this guy steps to the plate, he's hitting home runs. And then he has other months where you go, oh, Brian Dozier hit 154 with a single sacrifice fly in all of May. And that's just who Brian Dozier was. It was always, well, if he could be more consistent, but you're just not. You're just not consistent. Like sometimes you're going to feel it and sometimes you're not. And a lot of people, I think, with the Packers wanted so much for that narrative of Favre to Rodgers to Love as if they're the same person. And it's just by fate that the Green Bay franchise must have one of the top 3 to 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think it's by fate. I think that he's a certain type of quarterback. And that hot and cold quarterback is when he's at his best, people are going to say he's an MVP candidate. And when he's at his worst, he's going to look like he did last year against the Vikings or the time
we even saw that within 2 halves of one game at Lambeau last year.
No, that's absolutely right. Like that's who he is, I think, as a quarterback. Matt LaFleur has tried to mitigate it by running the football a ton. And I think, and it's a tell. It is an absolute tell when a team trades for a really expensive running back, hands him the football a million times. Like they want to do some of the stuff that they did with Kirk with Delvin. That was always Zimmer's thing. It's like, let's pare it down. Let's make it easier. Let's try to hit some big plays, keep the train on the tracks, and then hope the guy does something special a few times a game. There's a lot of quarterbacks like this that win a lot of games in the NFL, but I think that those types of quarterbacks have a limited ceiling and a floor that's pretty clear. Like their floor is there in the playoff race and their ceiling is there in the playoffs and probably getting eliminated in the first or second round. And I think that's just who the Packers are. where the Vikings, there is a ceiling that I think is going and playing on Championship Sunday. And then there is a floor where McCarthy doesn't get it. And the floor is really like a 2023 season where there's a lot of close games, but he doesn't come through and throws bad picks at the end or something. That I'm not saying he'll look like Nick Mullins, but that happened where it just the Denver game in 2023, something goes wrong, you lose at the end and you end up going 8-9 or 7-10, or guys get injured and your defense is down to starting Taki Taimani or something. And we've seen that play out before. That can happen. So I think it's a little broader for the Vikings than it would be for the Packers.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think the Packers have every team in the NFL has probably at least a 4 or 5 win range of outcomes on paper, maybe even smaller than that. The Vikings are a lot higher than that. They have like a 9 or 10 win gap that wouldn't shock me. Which I think is exciting this year, just more of the unknown. Like if you're a Packers fan, I don't know what your case is for convincing yourself that they have a Super Bowl ceiling this year, unless you're like, oh, Jordan Love is just going to like stop being a roller coaster and he's just going to leave the setting is just going to be on all the time now, which just doesn't usually happen. He's still relatively young and trust me, I mean, he has, I've seen how talented he is when he's on and he can make just about every throw, but I don't think he's suddenly going to do that all the time, like a Mahomes or Allen or Burrow or Jackson or one of those guys.
Down in the comments, answer that FanDuel question of the day. The Packers, according to FanDuel, a little more likely to win the NFC North than the Vikings. And I know we're in a Vikings podcast here, but do you agree? Or do you think that that's a little something that you would tell them to change? Okay, what else you got? What other opinion do you want me to tell you if you are wrong?
Okay, tell me I'm wrong. And this might be, we're going a little bold here. Tell me I'm wrong that the Vikings' depth at wide receiver is more concerning than their depth at cornerback. And here's my pitch. Here's my pitch for this. Right now, Justin Jefferson has a hamstring injury, and Kevin O'Connell says that he's not worried about it at all for the opener. And so, okay, I'm not worried either. But Justin Jefferson in 2023 also had a hamstring injury, and he missed 2 months. And that was the other hamstring. But Jordan Addison could be suspended for 3 games. Jalen Nailor in training camp has caught a lot of balls because he's taken every rep with the first team offense. But there's also been some balls that he hasn't caught and some deep balls that he has not been able to go get through good coverage that are like 50-50 balls. And he has just generally kind of continued to look like Jalen Nailor, which is a fine player, a number 3 and number 4 type receiver who was a 6th-round pick. And then beyond that, I don't know. Rondale Moore can really scoot, but he's like 5'7". And to me, that is maybe more of a gadget player than a legitimate every down receiver option if needed. Tim Jones is like a Trent Sherfield type blocking. That's fine. Ty Felton, it's been like a B- C+ for me in training camp in terms of there's been some balls that I want him to bring in that he hasn't brought in. And there's been some flashes. He's made some plays. But I don't know. I don't love the receiver depth here to the point where if they were going to go out and make a signing, I would almost rather them add a receiver. And I know that you like that. You like more receivers. The other thing I'll go through quickly is I think I feel better about the cornerback position than I thought I was going to. Jeff Okudah has pretty much impressed me every single practice. That does not mean he's going to carry that over into the season. There's still a big sample size of him in the NFL not playing very well and having red PFF coverage grades. But he's looked really good. Isaiah Rodgers looks really good. Byron Murphy continues to look awesome. Mekhi Blackmon has done some decent things. We haven't seen a ton of him. Dwight McGlothern is a guy who could potentially see the field with how well he's playing in training camp. Maybe I'm overreacting to a week of camp, but I am sort of starting to become more worried about wide receiver depth than cornerback depth. Tell me if I am wrong.
Did you see the twinkle in my eye when you said another receiver? And I went, yeah. I always love that. When you said it, I was excited about this because I think this is a really good discussion. It really depends on how much you believe in yourself evaluating the corners right now. because I think the corners to this moment have looked great. Jeff Okudah probably has to take it down a notch or two for his physicality, but also, I'll go with the old Zimmer. You'd rather tell him whoa than go. Like he's out there to prove something, and you can see it. Isaiah Rodgers, I think, is just going to be a really good player. He has all the movement skill, the playmaking skill on the football to me to be a above average starting corner. And Byron Murphy just looks like a star right now. And I think he's looked like a star for about 2 years. So yes, I get that part, but let's just remind you and everyone else that Jeff Okudah is now on his 4th team. And it's not been a great ride for Jeff Okudah so far. And you also talk about, McGlothern and Zemiah Vaughn. I mean, these are guys who just haven't played. And it's nice to have an undrafted free agent you get excited about. It's nice to have McGlothern picking off passes from Max Brosmer and Brett Rippon and so forth. But how much do we really make of that? Whereas Rondale Moore's caught real passes in the NFL before. And Lucky Jackson's been with this team. But here is the main reason I would say no, is if Jordan Addison is suspended for 3 games, Josh Oliver will play a lot of football. I don't think you're doing as much of 3 wide receiver stuff. And we also know that that's a clear out role. I mean, that is like, they're going to put him in the Jalen Nailor clear out. And also, how dare you? Kevin O'Connell just got Jalen Nailor's name tattooed on his neck. And you're coming on here and saying that he hasn't had a great camp. Come on. No, I think that they can survive a couple of games. Put it this way. I think they can survive without a receiver. I don't know if they can survive if a corner goes down unless we see a lot more from Mekhi Blackmon, unless we get a much bigger size on Jeff Okudah, and we're more confident in these undrafted free agents than just like a handful of practices. I'm going to lean toward the top receiver, whether it's Addison or Jefferson, is so good, and the second receiver is still proven in this offense. And then you have probably the best number 2 tight end in the NFL. I think they've got options there where you can play Oliver at tight end and Hawkinson in the nickel spot or in the slot spot where you're still going to be okay. Cause we don't think of Hawkinson as a receiver, but he does it a lot. So I'm going to go, I don't fully agree with that. And I'm going to tell you, you're a little bit wrong on that one.
That's fair. And I was to some degree trying to do a talk myself into with that line of thinking. There's some truth to it, some belief that I have. I think you could actually I like the Josh Oliver point that you can mitigate wide receiver depth concerns by using different personnel groupings. I think you can do the same thing on defense with Josh Metellus playing in the nickel. And you're just going to play Metellus, Theo Jackson, Harrison Smith every down and do a lot of stuff with just 2 corners. Granted, then, if you're losing, let's say, Murphy or Rodgers, then that's going to have to be Mekhi Blackmon or Jeff Okudah playing every down. And maybe that's still more of a question than a Jalen Nailor who we've seen, or even whoever the 4th receiver is. So I don't know. I think that if I had to actually decide a camp on this, I would probably still go with corners. But I bring it up just to I think raise interesting topic about the wide receivers, which is that I don't know that this room, I want to see more. I want to see more from the depth guys with Justin Jefferson out, because obviously the hope is that Jefferson will be back and he'll play in every game like he has in 4 out of the 5 seasons of his career, and that maybe they'll only lose Addison for 1 game or 2 games or something. But there's a chance that you play some time without those guys, and you want to have receivers that you can trust. And so you're not just running like CJ Ham and Josh Oliver out there and losing explosiveness. Because every time you put, 2 tight ends or a tight end and a fullback on the field, or 2 backs, 3 backs, whatever, you're losing some explosiveness because wide receivers are gonna be the guys who create those explosive plays. So hopefully Rondale Moore works out really well, and hopefully Ty Felton works out really well. And this is not a concern at all, but I thought it was something interesting to bring up.
I really think it is, because it's not. So I'm going to slightly still lean toward the corners, but I don't think it's very clear. And I think, everybody listening might have a different opinion one way or the other on which depth is more concerning. But I think there's a pretty clear swing player to both. The swing player for me is Rondale Moore. This guy has been an NFL receiver. He's caught a lot of passes, and I wouldn't expect in week 1 that he would be good to go as wide receiver 3 when called upon. That's why Lucky is in there. But you want to see that. Like, Felton, to me, is clearly not ready and is going to have to develop a lot this year. But in the secondary, I mean, there's just so much unproven, even with the guys that they're asking to start. Okay, here's the last one for me is I'm going to throw it out there, and I don't know how I feel about it. But in the spirit of the game, like you just did, just throw something out there and see how I feel about it. If we were ranking coaches under pressure, now that doesn't mean hot seat. That just means pressure. I'm going to say Kevin O'Connell is a top 5 coach under pressure going into this season. And I will present my case.
Okay.
Huge contract extension, despite rumors of a potential trade, which was definitely a thing that could have happened. But gets the huge contract extension, wins coach of the year, gets called quarterback whisperer by everyone. You're the NFL's genius for this year because you made Sam Darnold into a reasonably good quarterback. But then your organization decided you didn't need Sam Darnold and you didn't need Aaron Rodgers either. So 2 proven quarterbacks, one of them won 14 games for you. And you said, nope, don't need you. One of them is going to the Hall of Fame. Nope, don't need you. We are good with the guy that you scouted, you drafted, you believed in, you bought into. And we don't even talk about this. The guy they didn't draft already made the playoffs in Bo Nix. So there, and look at this class. Like Penix looked good last year. Daniels is already an MVP candidate. Drake May flashed a lot, right? And who knows what Caleb Williams will be, but Ben Johnson could be Mr. Genius of this year if Caleb Williams steps up. It's the toughest division. The Super Bowl expectations are on, and you have to now do it again with making lemonade out of lemons with the quarterback situation. And you know, the lemons are first round lemons. They're good. They're the high quality here. It's a lot of talent for JJ McCarthy, but still a bold play and a lot of hype for him as a coach. You gotta follow it up. I think he's under a ton of pressure this year.
Yeah, wow, the Twins just traded Carlos Correa.
To who?
Back to the Astros.
Oh,
so
well, that went okay.
We're not a Minnesota Twins podcast. I agree that Kevin O'Connell is under pressure. I think that because of the bar that he has set for himself and the way that expectations shift when you have success. Obviously, going 34-17 in your first 3 years is really, really good. And so by the standard of any head coach or even coaches he's only been around this is going into his 4th season. He's not at any risk, obviously, after the extension of being on a hot seat or losing his job or anything like that. But you haven't won a playoff game yet. You were the coach of the year last year. You're being talked about as this golden boy in coaching. So to not take that next step, I think there would start to be some talking and some criticism, like, oh, he's just a regular season merchant or whatever, or maybe he's not quite the quarterback guru that he thought because this was his handpicked guy and he didn't do it. So I think that because he's raised the bar for himself to such a high place, I agree that there is some pressure to deliver on the expectations that you've now set.
I think so too. And I really don't, I think we just always have to conflate them because that's how TV works, where anytime they talk about a coach, it's either if the guy is coach of the year or they want him fired. There is a different ground there where I would not fire Kevin O'Connell under any circumstances, no matter what happens this year, because I think he's done so much to turn around this franchise to put him in the position to chase a Super Bowl legitimately. And they haven't been there for a really long time, but still, I mean, the narratives change quick in the NFL. They change super quick. I mean, just even look at Dak Prescott. 2023, as he walks into the playoffs, it's Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. They got the best offense. Mike McCarthy looks great. He's turned around the Dallas Cowboys. They lose a playoff game. He gets hurt the next year, and all of a sudden, McCarthy's fired. Dak Prescott is a dweeb, and here we are. So things change really fast in the NFL. They change fast at training camp as well. And SI on Vikings is
Vikings on SI.
Oh my gosh. Vikings on who cares?
It's okay.
No, truly. My bad. Vikings on SI. Okay. Either way. But if you Google it, it'll still come up. I promise.
Yep.
What I was going to say, Will, is that you do the most detailed recaps of every single practice. And when I write something down and then I'm not sure later, I go to yours. I'm like, wait, did Will see the same thing as me? You really do keep tremendous notes and paint a picture of what every camp practice is like. So Vikings on SI. Make sure you check out Will's recaps every day and features as well. So thank you, sir, for your time. And we will absolutely talk each other into, out of, analyze opinions again very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, football.
Football.